We try to marry that with what the Senate President said there, that it's just not with the National Assembly but with the people as well. So how can they be part of this process since it's already kick-started? How can the people be part of this whole process?
Anyway, in view of the fact that this is what we have now, we have to just make the best out of it. We have to send memoranda as they have called for it, but remember, the final authority on what finally comes in depends on the National Assembly. That is where we have problems. But then, let's just continue with what they are doing and see the best we can do. You see, when you already have a bad situation, the best thing is to see, how do I get out of this mess? So, to that extent, we all will make our input, into what is going to happen. We have a series of areas. We have the judiciary, we have the political system, the type of political system, but more importantly, we have the fiscal federalism we are talking about. I do not have faith in the National Assembly to confront fiscal federalism head-on.
Why?
Why I do not is because they have personal interest. Personal interest in the sense is just not the executive, it's also the legislature. If, for instance, now that, if, for instance, generality of the people want them to just retain 20%, would they agree to do that? Knowing fully well that when they retain 20%, it will be difficult to fund the National Assembly to the tune they want. It will be difficult to fund the executive to the tune they want. So these are all, so you see that there is no way, even if the entire country says, federal government just concentrate on defense, concentrate on some of the few things, but take 20%. Do you think they will agree?
But that's not democracy. If that actually plays out, if the people, majority of the people say this is what they want, and the National Assembly does otherwise, then that's not democracy, is it?
But they say they speak for us. So that's where I'm talking about. That's issue of conflicts.
Do you think that we as a people will want to starve the National Assembly of funds?
No, not starving them of funds. But when you restrict the areas they are going to legislate on, it means the workload they would have reduced. The number of sittings would have reduced. You devolve these to the states, to the federating units. And when you have these items to the federating units, it means that the federating units will have to sit more. Now, for instance, you have the exclusive legislative list, exclusively reserved for the National Assembly. You have the concurrent list, which either the National Assembly or the state assemblies can legislate on. But in most cases, you have National Assembly legislating on all these. So you see that they have a greater bulk of the work to do. So they sit on daily basis. In fact, as a matter of fact, the committees sit Saturdays and, so they have much work. But they do not have business doing some of these.
Maybe we are preempting the National Assembly and saying that because they have an interest here, they might not be able to, do their work as they should. Because some members have said, amongst the members of the National Assembly have said that they would even support a unicameral legislature, that we don't need a bicameral legislature. Would you think that will come from a member of the National Assembly?
I wouldn't think that will come from them. They may not want that one too. And like I said again, it will be a whole review of the Constitution. So it's not an issue they would really gladly debate. Because what does it mean? The House of Representatives will be reduced, or the Senate will be reduced. Two of them, if you merge the two of them together, it doesn't make sense for two persons to represent a particular area.
Do you think that we should be looking towards that, especially as regards cutting the cost of governance?
I think as long as we have the presidential system, we still need the bicameral system. Why? When you look at some other functions of the Senate, the confirmatory powers of the Senate, that's a manageable proportion. You have 109 persons doing confirmation. When you now have maybe 400 persons doing confirmation, you know what it means. It cannot really work. So under the presidential system, it's still okay to have a bicameral system. But if we have a parliamentary system, you see there will be no need for a bicameral system. But again, more importantly is that there is the need to have some checks and balances, because the Senate is also a check on the House of Representatives, while the House of Representatives is also a check on the Senate. So it helps to balance governance, but it's increasing the cost of governance again. So that's my take on that for now.
A very quick one here. One other sore point they talked about is state creation, and they said the eastern, southeast should get one more, and they base that on equity.
Yes. You see, when you're now unknown to the constitution, we now have a 6-zonal system, and that 6-zonal system is nowhere to be found in the constitution. But apparently, the constitution recognized it by saying there is Federal Character Commission. Now, federal character in some appointments will look at the 6 zones. And when it's looking at these 6 zones, it means that relatively, surreptitiously, these 6 zones are relatively becoming the federating units, aside from the states. And what does it mean? It simply means that there has to be a kind of equity within the system. So it's actually encouraging an equitable, implementation of the federal character systems. I don't think there is anything wrong with it.
But in the days of talking about state viability, we're just talking about fiscal federalism now. The fact that some states cannot even support themselves, they don't get anything from the federal government. How do you think that would work?
The viability of states is a greater problem we have in the country. We have no business with that 6 states. In fact, my original view is that let's have a 6 federating system. Let's have the six of them as the states. And let the states go down to local governments. Let them become local governments. So that it becomes easier for units, to create, like there are basic functions. You have economic units. If you have, for instance, the Southwest, all of them becoming one state or one federating unit to the national, they can have common economy. They can plan. There can be railway. There can be various economic interests that can revolve about them. And that is the only way we can survive. We reduce the cost of governance. The states you can now create them up to 100 and make them local governments, and not having 700 and something local governments. And when you go to most of these local governments, nothing happens in many of them. I can tell you more than 60% of local governments, you just see them when they will collect salaries. Go and ask them, what do they do in your community? Find out what have they been able to do with the money going there.